You ever spend a cold night out on a piece of land and think, okay, I was not ready for that? Yeah, most people have been there at least once. Hey, welcome back to the Land Buyer's Guide. I'm your host, Scott Thomas, owner of landparker.com, where we help everyday people find and own affordable rural land, often with owner financing, sometimes as low as $100 down and $100 a month. Today we're talking about cold weather camping. And I know that might sound like a niche topic, but stick with me here, because if you're buying land, scouting property, or thinking about spending time on a piece of rural ground in the winter months, this stuff is genuinely useful. Cold weather camping doesn't have to be miserable, and it doesn't have to be extreme either. With a little preparation and the right gear, it can actually be one of the best ways to connect with land. So let's get into it. The first place to start is your sleeping setup. Honestly, if you get this wrong, nothing else really matters. You're going to be cold and miserable no matter what. So let's make sure you get it right. Your sleeping bag rating is important. The general rule of thumb is to pick a bag that's rated about 10 to 15 degrees lower than the coldest night you're expecting. So if you think it might hit 30 degrees, a bag rated to 20 gives you a comfortable buffer. That little extra margin is worth it. Now, here's what a lot of people don't realize. The ground is actually your bigger enemy than the cold air. Cold ground pulls heat out of your body surprisingly fast, so don't skip the sleeping pad. You want one with a decent R value, something rated at 4 or higher for winter conditions. That insulation underneath you makes a real difference. And if you want to add warmth to your setup without buying a whole new sleeping bag, grab a sleeping bag liner. A fleece or thermal liner can add somewhere between 10 and 25 degrees of extra warmth. They're relatively inexpensive and packed down small. Really useful piece of gear. Also, wearing a light base layer and some wool socks to bed helps more than you'd think. Okay, so now let's talk about clothing, because layering is kind of the whole game when it comes to staying comfortable outdoors in the cold. The way it works is pretty simple. 3 layers. Your base layer is right against your skin. Its job is to pull moisture away from your body. Merino wool is fantastic for this. Synthetic materials work well too. The one thing to avoid is cotton. Cotton holds moisture, and once it gets wet, it stays cold. Not what you want. Your mid layer is your insulation. This is where the warmth lives. Fleece jackets, down vests, synthetic puffer jackets all work great. And then your outer layer is your shell. Something wine-proof and water-resistant that still breathes a little so moisture can escape. The thing is, you'll be taking layers on and off throughout the day. When you're setting up camp or hauling firewood, you're going to warm up fast. And if you don't peel back a layer, you'll start sweating. Then when you stop moving, that moisture makes you cold. So don't be afraid to adjust as you go. That's exactly what the layering system is designed for. Next up, where you actually set up camp. This matters more in cold weather than a lot of people expect. Wind is a big factor. Look for natural windbreaks, trees, rock formations, a hillside. Anything that blocks that wind is going to make your campsite feel noticeably warmer. Also worth mentioning, avoid setting up in low spots like valleys or hollows. Cold air sinks. The lowest point on a piece of land is usually the coldest spot at night. Higher ground or a gentle slope is going to serve you better. Point your tent door away from the direction the wind is coming from. Sounds simple, but it makes a difference every time you open and close that door. And if you're camping in serious cold, a 4-season tent, or even just adding a solid rainfly and a ground footprint to a 3-season tent can add meaningful insulation and protection. Now let's talk food. Your body is basically a furnace, right? It generates heat by burning fuel. And in cold weather, your metabolism is working harder than usual just to keep your core temperature up. That means you need to eat more than you normally would. Hot meals make a real difference. Oatmeal in the morning, soups or stews in the evening, things that are warm and calorie dense. Fat and protein are your friends out there. And don't wait until you're hungry to snack. Keeping your energy levels steady throughout the day helps your body stay warm between meals. Hydration is one that catches people off guard. When it's cold, you don't feel as thirsty. But dehydration actually messes with your body's ability to regulate temperature. So you've got to be intentional about drinking water. Bring an insulated water bottle. It keeps your water from freezing. And here's a little trick. Fill it with hot water before bed and toss it in your sleeping bag. It's like a personal heater that lasts a few hours. Works great. One more thing on the food and drink topic: alcohol. A lot of people think a drink warms you up, and it does feel that way in the moment, but what it's actually doing is dilating your blood vessels, which causes your body to lose heat faster. So if you're in genuinely cold conditions, just go easy on it. All right, heat sources. A good campfire is probably the single best thing you can have out there. It gives you warmth, light, a way to cook, and honestly just does wonders for morale on a cold night. Learning to build and maintain a fire in wet or windy conditions is a skill that'll serve you for years. Worth the time to figure out. If you want something more controlled, propane camp heaters can work well in certain tent setups. Just make sure you're using one that has an oxygen depletion sensor and following the ventilation guidelines closely. Safety first there. Wood-burning camp stoves are really popular with homesteaders and off-grid folks. They heat a tent efficiently and can double as a cooking surface. A lot of functionality in one piece of gear. And don't underestimate hand warmers. Keep a few in your pockets or your gloves. They're small, cheap, and surprisingly effective when you just need a quick burst of warmth. Let's talk about keeping your gear dry, because wet gear is one of the fastest ways to go from comfortable to miserable out there. Your boots and wet clothing. Store those in the tent vestibule or in a dry bag rather than inside your sleeping area. Bringing that wet stuff inside will drop the temperature in your sleeping space. Not ideal. Bring extra socks and gloves too. Those two items get wet more than almost anything else, and being able to rotate them throughout the day is a small thing that makes a big difference. Use waterproof stuff sacks or dry bags for anything critical: fire starters, extra layers, electronics. Condensation happens overnight inside tents, and you don't want your backup gear getting damp. A couple of quick habits worth mentioning. Before you get into your sleeping bag at night, do a few minutes of light movement. A short walk, some jumping jacks, whatever gets your blood moving. You'll climb into that bag already warmed up instead of waiting 20 minutes for it to heat up around you. Change into dry base layers before bed. Even if your clothes don't feel super wet, any moisture from the day's activity can make your night colder than it needs to be. In the morning, have a hot drink ready fast. Keep your camp organized so you're not fumbling around in the cold looking for stuff. And get moving early. Physical activity is your friend in the morning when temps are at their lowest. So here's the big takeaway from all of this. If you're buying rural land or thinking about doing your first overnight stay on a new property, cold weather camping is genuinely one of the best ways to get to know that land. You see it in a completely different light than you do in the summer. You understand the wind patterns, the low spots, where it stays cold, where it's sheltered. That kind of knowledge is actually really valuable when you're planning a long-term homestead or off-grid setup. A warm weather visit just doesn't give you the same picture. Cold weather camping rewards preparation. That's really the whole thing. Get your sleeping system right, dress in layers, pick your campsite thoughtfully, eat well, stay hydrated, manage moisture, and what could feel like something to endure actually becomes something you look forward to. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're in the market for rural land and you want to explore what's available right now, head over to landparker.com. We've got affordable properties across the country with owner financing options that make it possible for just about anyone to get started. Sometimes as low as $100 down and $100 a month. Go check it out at landparker.com. We'll see you next time.